Hi, hello, good morning. It's the 24th of January, I believe, today. And I am still in the property that I've been renting for the last 9 years. It has really, this year so far, and definitely last year, have been two of the hardest years for me in a long time. I mean, literally since my son was born. I've had almost a decade of, not having to worry about being homeless or, not being financially secure. Believe me, I mean, before his birth, the amount of hell I've gone through, I'd never wish my life on anyone. And I know a lot of people will say, well, there's always going to be somebody worse off than you, and I totally agree with that. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, if you are, whether you're religious or not, I'm thinking, God, if somebody's life is worse than mine, they deserve more help and support than me, definitely. But it has just been just mentally and physically exhausting to live like this, and to think, that we're in 2026 now, and I live in the United Kingdom. It's not like I'm living in a third world country yet. And the amount of things that people are having to currently go through, like, no job security, homelessness is on the increase again. There's just, poverty. Or the amount of times you will read something in the paper about how many families are in poverty and how many people are living in unfit accommodation like myself, and and struggling literally to make ends meet. I actually stayed at one of the hotels in Coventry over the weekend because the central heating in the property I'm renting doesn't work. The noise you can actually hear is the electric fan. And the reason I don't feel safe using it is because there is a hole in the wall near the boiler. And I had some arrogant prick turn up. And I'm going to say that because that is how I honestly feel. His attitude was just absolutely disgusting towards me. He was not professional in the slightest. I had the gentleman from P3, who are an organisation that support people to prevent homelessness, and he wouldn't even acknowledge that he was even in the room with me at the time. And I was like, well, who are you? I need to know who you are. You could just be anyone walking into the property that I'm renting. And straight away, the aggression in his voice, I don't need to tell you who I am. Your landlord's approved for me to be here. And I'm like, I don't care who's approved for you to be in the property. I'm the tenant, and I have a legal right and obligation, and you have an obligation to me to tell me who you are. For safeguarding. This is why whenever I've had people turn up at the property, I've tried really, really hard to not have any of my children here for safeguarding, because I don't know who these people are. I've not approved these people to come into the house that I'm renting. I've trusted somebody else to do it. And every time someone has turned up at the property, either to fix the electrics or do the boiler or to allegedly fix stuff that hasn't worked, I've just been totally and utterly bullshitted. I've had exposed wires just left exposed in walls and in ceilings. I've had boilers that haven't been serviced for 5 years. I've had black mold. I've had so much shit to deal with, and I've never been in a council property, but I have been in a housing association property. And I'll tell you what, the amount of shit I dealt with in those 4 years of living there, to then be told, you've been Section 21, you've got to get out, you haven't got a legal legs to stand on. And I wasn't just told that by the housing association. I was told that by my local council. I was told that by citizens' advice, and I'm going back 2012, 2013. So nothing's changed. Nothing has improved to support people, in my opinion, in the last sort of 12 years. But this time round, I have known a little bit more about the law. I've known a little bit more about how to protect myself and to protect my children. And I have still not had an apology from the council for the huge fuck up they made in October. But at the moment, I'm under a new member of staff, and she has been really, really good and really supportive. That doesn't mean I'm not going to put in a formal complaint against the council to the financial housing ombudsman, because to treat somebody the way I was treated in October is just absolutely disgusting. And I would never wish that on anybody, to be constantly bullshitted and be given conflicting information. And one of the main issues has been, has my boiler been legally serviced? Now, I've basically said it hasn't been. My boiler has never been legally serviced from the day I moved in. I had a new boiler in 2021, and it took till 2025 for whoever's claiming to be the landlord of the property I'm renting to have it serviced. And the moment somebody came out to service it, they didn't even get the job, because they were saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So they basically got told to fuck off. We're not going to pay you. We don't want you here. So then they went with somebody else who, in my opinion, should never be anywhere near a boiler. Okay? And the arrogant prick that I had to deal with on Tuesday, he just kept saying to me, are you gas safe registered? Are you gas safe registered? If you're not gas safe registered, don't tell me how to do my job. And I just felt I was that close to say to him, no, I'm not gas safe registered, mate, but I am Corgi registered, because it was Corgi before it was gas safe. So shut the fuck up, you stupid bastard. Get the hell out of the house and don't come back. But because it wasn't my property, I couldn't do that. The only thing I could say to him was, you're lucky that this isn't my house, because if it was, I would have took legal action against you. All he did was stand in the kitchen, look at the boiler and went, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, you tell me what's wrong. Well, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong. He didn't look at it. He didn't take the cover off the front. He did nothing. He just stood there and went, well, what's wrong? What's the problem? And I said, the boiler needs a servicing. It needs sorting out properly. It's not working. And there's a hole in the wall. And it was, well, you've done that. My plumber never would have done that. You've done that. You've done that. No, I haven't. Why would I knock a hole in a wall in a property that I'm renting, knowing that whoever owns the house will try and shaft me for as much money as they can when eventually they manage to kick me out? And why on earth would I put a hole in a wall next to a boiler when I know that, according to his employee, told me, oh, the reason why your boiler is not safe, love, they always say love, and it always pisses me off, is because there's a hole in the wall, and because your flue's not being put in properly, and it can cause backdraft, and it has to be fixed properly, otherwise it's going to cause problems. And then he knocks an even bigger hole in the wall, and then doesn't even bother to fill it in properly. And because of all the rain and all the wind and everything we've had over the last couple of weeks, it's bloody blowing the cement, well, it's not even the cement, it's like plaster, out of the wall and exposed the hole that's there. And it is, it's people like that that give other professional tradesmen or women a bad reputation. Because I'm telling you now, you do not hear very often about somebody saying, oh, I've had a really good plumber come to my property, or I've had a really good electrician, or I've had a really good builder. You don't hear about those people. You only hear about the arseholes, the twats, the ones that, put crap or piss in your foundations of your property to fill up a hole, or use newspaper so they don't have to use as much concrete. And they say, oh, well, we're allowed to do that because, it provides something for the concrete to stick to. And it's like, Yeah, all right, mate, I believe you. Thousands wouldn't. You know, and it is ridiculous. And the safety regulations that these people have to abide by aren't even worth the paper they're written on. Absolute crap. And the council have got even less power than they make out. And again, it's just fucking stupid. You know, I said to the council, I said, you should have your own gas safe engineer. You should have your own electrician who you would phone up. You know, it doesn't have to be the same person. You could have like people on not a retainer, but you know, that are I'm trying to think of the word. Tendered. So every year, you as the Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Council or Leicestershire Council or Warwick Council or whatever could say, we have got an opening in our environmental health and private housing sector. We need someone who is a qualified qualified builder, qualified architect or surveyor, qualified electrician, qualified plumber, and someone who has qualified, who is a qualified gas safe engineer. And you employ these people, and when somebody like me or an old person or anybody rings up the council and says, look, you know, I've got a problem. I've had an issue with my landlord. I think there's something wrong with my boiler, but they're refusing to pay to have somebody come out and check it. Or, you know, it's due a service and the time has lapsed, which is what happened with me. Could you please come out and sort it? And they could then write to the landlords and say, okay, we've had a complaint of cause for concern from your tenant. We are going to give you 14 days to sort your shit out. So within 14 days, we want you to get that boiler serviced or check, you know, get out an electrician, whatever, yeah? And if they don't do it within that time period, then they can take legal action against your landlord. I know this because I've had emails to prove it. You know, and they've threatened my landlord in the past, and they've just never done anything about it. So it's been all mouth, no trousers. And and then if the work's still not undertaken within that time period, and the landlord gives an excuse or whatever, they can then say, okay, so you're telling me you couldn't find an electrician, you couldn't find a builder, you couldn't find a surveyor, you couldn't find a plumber, you couldn't find somebody that was gas safe registered to do the work within 14 days. Okay, we will send our staff out and you will pay us. So straight away, the council are getting, say it's £100 for a call out. This is before any work is undertaken. And then that money that the local council gets can go into a secure bank account. And then that money then could be used at a later stage to, you know, pay their legal fees or to pay their staff who are obviously tendered to do the work. And they've not paid for it. It's the private housing sector or the housing association that have paid for that, paid for these plumbers. So they know that they're going to get paid no matter what. And in that way, you as a tenant have a little bit more of a safety net and you feel a little bit more secure because, you know, you've gone to the council and you've said, look, you know, I don't trust my landlord. I think they're a fucking arsehole. They've not serviced my boiler. This is wrong, this could be wrong. And they send somebody out and they go, okay, yeah, no, we've serviced the boiler and the thermostat needs replacing, or the flue's not right, or the water pressure's dropping. There might be a water leak in the property. And then they are going to have the right documentation filled out because it's going to have been filled out not just by the council who have certified this work to take place, but also by a certified and a qualified and experienced, labourer. Because the person they actually send out to assess a property when you say there's something wrong with it, they don't know fuck all. I'm telling you that now. They'll come in and it'll be like, oh, what's wrong? And you're like, well, there's wires hanging from the ceiling. Oh, my boiler's leaking. Oh, all my plug sockets aren't working properly. The electrics in my fuse box keep tripping, and I don't know why, because I'm not an electrician. And they'll go, oh, okay, all right. And then they'll write it down on a little piece of paper, and then they'll fuck off. And you won't hear anything from them for about 14 days, unless you're constantly emailing or ringing or going into the council house and saying, what the fuck's going on? You've done this, you've had this guy come out, and they've not done anything. And then they'll say, oh, we've contacted your landlord, and we've told them that they need to get somebody to come out and view the property. 4 years I waited. 4 years I waited for anyone to come and look at my boiler. And all the council kept saying was, well, we've contacted your landlord. We've contacted your landlord. No, I'm sorry. That's not good enough. Nobody should be waiting 4 years to have their boiler serviced when it is a legal obligation that your boiler, by law, it's not optional, it's compulsory, has to be serviced on an annual basis, all right? And if the council had their own team of skilled labourers that could come out and look at a property and go straight away, no, we're sorry, that isn't fit to live in, that isn't safe, this needs sorting out within the next 48 hours, 72 hours, 7 to 14 days, fine. But the fact that I waited 4 years to have my boiler serviced, 4 years of contacting Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, telling them that my landlord had refused to service my boiler. And yes, there's a little bit in the back of my head that's saying, I could have just done it myself. I should have been like, fuck him. He's a twat. He ain't going to pay to have the boiler service. I know, I'll just pay the £100 myself and do it. But I shouldn't have to. Because I'm the tenant. My rent should include and cover an annual boiler service. And this is why I'm getting really, really angry and frustrated, because people are being neglected in the United Kingdom. I can't talk about anywhere else because I don't live there. And the councils are not doing anything to support them. And that has got to stop. So today I'm waiting for a phone call from Housing Solutions to tell me whether or not they are going to lift the suspension from my homeless application. On the grounds that I've basically been treated like crap for the last 12 months. Not just by the company I rent the house off, but by the council as well. And I think they're trying to do it now to keep me quiet, but it ain't going to happen. I'm telling you that now. I will be taking legal action against everybody that has shit on me and has broken the law if I can, because it's unacceptable and it shouldn't be happening. And at the moment, there are so many people out there struggling to find properties that are affordable and that are safe to live in. I went to an estate agent yesterday and I said to them, look, I'm on 40, I'm on 24,000 a year. That is what I get from the government because I'm unable to work. There's loads and loads of things that go into that, okay? Don't think that the government have just gone, oh, we're going to give you 24 grand a year, because that isn't how it works, okay? It has took me 3 years to be given back any benefits that I was legally entitled to. And when it comes to getting your benefits back, citizens' advice, I would definitely say should be your first point of call. But it wasn't just my benefits, it was my son's benefits as well, because my son was born with a disability. And obviously, I strongly believe even today that the reason my son is disabled is because the hospital operated on me when I was pregnant, and the anaesthesia affected his his nervous system and his development within the womb. And when they operated on me, they told me I wasn't pregnant, but I was. And it's really, really hard to prove a medical negligence claim. Okay. I haven't even started mine yet after the way I was treated last year, but that's a separate issue. But so the way I look at it is, I'd rather not have a disabled child, but if my son is going to need financial support and care for the rest of his life, and it probably was due to medical negligence, then I am going to fight to make sure he gets every penny that he is legally entitled to from the government. And the same with myself. I literally spent the first, from the age of 16 to 30, working my fingers to the bone, trying to work, having these undiagnosed illnesses and disabilities that were not formally diagnosed and recognised until after I'd had my son. And for years and years and years, I was going to the doctors, I was going to the hospital, I was having tests, I was trying to work around my constant illnesses and disabilities with my employers. And then all of a sudden, I give birth to my child. And the first year after having him, I was so sick. I'm not joking. I thought I was dying. And they kept saying, it's just because you've had a baby, it's hormonal, they do the whole, it's nothing to do with the fact that there's anything wrong with you. You've just got to allow your body to heal and all this. And then after about 6 months, they realised, there is actually something seriously wrong with this woman. And I then started getting the help and support I needed. But unfortunately, with my illness and disability, there is no cure. There's prevention by taking loads of medication, but there's no cure. And because now, obviously, I have a disabled child as well, I'm well enough to take care of him. And believe me, there are so many people out there who this year are going to be shat on. They are now trying to say that disabled parents cannot take care of children, or they cannot take care of disabled children, but that's a separate issue. And they've actually tried to do that with me twice, to say, well, if you're disabled, how can you take care of your child? And it's like, because I'm their mum. My illnesses and disabilities do not affect my ability to homeschool my son, to take care of him. Physically, yeah, I do struggle a little, but he is at an age now where he is able to be a little bit more, independent in his own personal hygiene. But still, he needs assistance. So he needs assistance when going to the toilet. He needs assistance with feeding. He needs assistance with, bathing and dressing himself. So I still have to assist him with that, which obviously with my physical needs can be very tiring for me. But it doesn't prevent me from doing my job. Unfortunately, what it would prevent me from doing is working on a full-time basis. I did try to go back to work after having my children, but I just wasn't able to physically and mentally do the work that I went back to do. What didn't help as well is the fact that they cut my hours. So if I was going back to work and it was full-time, I might have been a bit better off. But because my employer, after I finally came back off maternity leave, they cut my hours to 2 hours a week from a 48-hour-a-week contract. I was absolutely livid, and the mental and physical exhaustion of just working for 2 hours as opposed to 48 was just insane, because my employer wasn't local. It would literally take me 3 hours to get there, to do a 2-hour shift, and then take me 3 hours to get home again. It was just insane. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But again, a lot of stuff's changing with employment in the UK as well, and the DWP will expect people to travel up to 2 hours in one direction for work and 2 hours back. And because I already had a job, I wasn't going to not do that job. I had to wait for them to basically contract me out. So that's what they did. They said, look, you know, we can only give you 2 hours a week, so we're going to contract you out. And I was like, what does that mean? And I spoke to my union rep about it. They weren't very helpful. And they basically said, we're going to give you a 6 weeks contract of 2 hours. And then after that, you won't be working for us anymore. And I was quite heartbroken because I really love my job. I love teaching, and to have that taken away from me was, yeah, it was really painful. Because out of all my jobs I've ever done in my life, teaching was like the thing I loved the most. Sorry. And that's why I love homeschooling my child. I mean, I'm upset because he has to be homeschooled. And, you know, and I kept saying to myself, oh gosh, you know, if he could have got into like an SEN school or mainstream would have took him, you know, maybe I could have gone back to work teaching. I could never have gone back full time. I know that. But I really, really miss it. And I miss, you know, the fact that I'm so dependent now on the government and just like everybody who has to claim anything from the government, you're just treated like shit. And not just by the government, but by society as well. I mean, I went into a shop yesterday, and it was a charity shop for disabled people in my hometown, and the woman running it, bearing in mind, a lot of these shops are run by volunteers, yeah? Her attitude was absolutely disgusting. She basically turned around and said to me, not knowing anything about me as a person, because I was saying, oh, you know, a lot of people that volunteer in charity shops are people, you know, are either retired, which is what she admitted to, or they're people who aren't able to work because of, like, you know, illness or disability. So a lot of people like that, you know, they'll do so much voluntary work a week just to make them feel like they're contributing to society and they're not being isolated from their local community. And she basically turned around and said, oh, no, disabled people choose not to work. It's not that they can't. And I just thought, you fucking bitch, how could you say that? You know, you're working in a shop for disabled people and you're basically saying all disabled people choose not to work. That is not true. I know loads of people with disabilities who work for a living, and they're really, really lucky that they're still able to do so. And a lot of them have said, you know, I'm glad I can still work. I'm glad that I can still have that level of independence. But it doesn't mean that they don't have to claim universal credit or, you know, personal independent payments or anything. They just might not get a higher payment. And it still doesn't mean that they're not in inadequate accommodation, like anyone in today's society. I mean, it's just absolutely shocking how people are treated. Doesn't matter whether you're disabled or not. But to hear that from an actual person running a charity shop was just disgusting, in my opinion. But I'm going to go now. I'm sorry I started crying. It's just, you know, I mean, this last week and this last year have just been really, really hard for me and my family as well. And I'm just so angry more than anything. I'm just angry that the breakdown in communication in society has resulted in things just being as shit as they are. And it's the same with the way I've been treated. It's just like nobody has the ability to communicate with each other. And I have been banging my head up a brick wall literally for an entire year with the council, not to mention like before then, because like I said, my boiler was not serviced for 5 years by my landlord, because I don't have a landlord, but that's a separate issue. But the fact that even now, I spoke to them yesterday and they were basically accusing me of lying to them. Why would I lie? I mean, why would anyone lie about when they had the boiler serviced, when you have the document in front of you that proves the date that the boiler was serviced on, even though it hasn't been filled in correctly? And if you're lying, then why would another department within the same council say, because you haven't got a valid gas safety certificate, we cannot class your section 21 as legal? You know, and this is what's so frustrating. I've got so many people who work for the same council telling me different things that I just don't know where I stand with anybody. And it's so frustrating. And all I can think about is how, you know, before all of this, before I became a mom, I used to teach, and I used to love teaching. I used to love having the opportunity to educate and support young people, and not just young people. I used to teach people who were like retired, you know, as well, and it was beautiful, and to see that you were kind of helping and supporting somebody. It wasn't like I was curing cancer or anything like that, but it was just so nice to be around. And that's what I love about my boys. You know, the two of them, they are really, really artistic and creative, and they've said, you know, this is what we want to do when we leave school. And I'm like, I know how hard it is to get work in the art and media industry. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to do when you leave school, I will help you. I will support you. I will do anything I can to make your dreams come true. Because I would not want them to struggle. And so one of the things that me and their dad is trying to encourage them into is being independent, going down the self-employment route. Because I'm not saying you wouldn't get a job in a really good company, but everything is just changing so much all the time that having the ability to be independent and self-employed, I feel, is going to be a real solid foundation for anyone who is, I'm not saying you shouldn't get another job or that you couldn't work for anyone else, but with the high turnover of employment just lately, I feel that definitely self-employment is going to be something that's going to be on the increase. But that's a separate issue. So I'm going to wait for housing to get back to me and find out where I stand. And the other thing that's really, really hard for everybody, and I'm not just saying about people on benefits, I'm talking about everyone. Anyone who is now forced into the private housing sector. I actually spoke to an estate agent yesterday, and they actually said that when you put in an application for housing, they will look at your annual income. And your annual income must be 3 times higher than your rent. And if it isn't, then they want you to have a guarantor. But to have a guarantor, that guarantor themselves has to be earning $35,000 a year. And this is why there's such a huge housing crisis within Nuneaton, not just within Nuneaton and Bedworth, but in the whole of the United Kingdom. Because if you're being told that you've got to be earning 3 times your rent in order to rent in the private housing sector, how is anyone supposed to live? A lot of the properties where I live at the moment, they're wanting £1,000 a month for you to rent their house. It doesn't matter whether it's a 1-bed or a 2-bed, which is what I'd only be entitled to anyway, because I have a small family. But they've told me I've got to be earning £4,000 a year. Not a year, sorry. What am I saying? £4,000 a year. That'd be great, wouldn't it? If you only had to earn £4,000 a year to rent somewhere. But yeah, we'd all be doing it. I have to be earning £4,000 a month in order to rent in the private housing sector. And I don't know anyone who's on that kind of money. At all. So, if you have any questions or queries, please feel free to comment. Like I said, I mean, I will try to offer as much support I can, or, you know, try and point you in the right direction, as somebody who's obviously gone through the grinder so many times. But if you do say anything obviously abusive or offensive or derogatory towards myself or anyone else, then your post will be removed. So take care of you and all the best. And try and enjoy the day. Thank you.